Hello everybody, welcome to a video editing tutorial for beginners. This is going to be a great video if you are new to video editing or you just want to pick up a few tips and tricks that you can utilize whenever you are editing video. So this is going to hopefully be a one take for the most part type of video where I'm going to show you step by step how to edit a video. We're going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro, which I think is one of the best out there, at least that I've used personally. So if you do have Adobe Premiere Pro, this will be a great tutorial for you. But if you don't use Adobe Premiere and you use something else, this tutorial should also give you some good pointers and things you can do, even if you're using another software. So when you first open Adobe Premiere, you're going to want to start a new project, which is going to be this blue button on the top left. We're just going to click that. And then this is also, keep in mind, this tutorial is going to be how I do it. There's a million ways to do it. And for me, I would say intermediate video editor. I'm not going to show you anything over professional or too advanced. We're going to keep it stupid simple and very practical so you can actually apply anything you learn in this video in your own editing practices. So project name, top left, let's just name this example video edit. Project name doesn't really matter, of course, but you can also save your project location here and things like that if you do want to make sure you keep track of putting your project files in a certain area, because you definitely want to be able to save those in case your power goes out or something crashes, or any other reason you would need to go back into the edit and change something. Once you've finished the edit and, maybe you messed something up, you forgot to add something. So make sure you always do know where your project is saved. That is important. So once you've added your project name, you can come down to the bottom right and just click create. And if you just give it a second, it will open up. Now, keep in mind, your layout might not look exactly like mine. This is just how I have my layout right now, but you can always click and drag between these little workspace windows to resize things, not only just before you edit, but even during your editing. For instance, if you need the timeline smaller or larger, you can do that. And you can do the same thing over here with the project area as well. So also, if there's anything on my screen or that I use in this video in Adobe Premiere Pro that you don't have, like maybe the effects panel or the essential graphics or the effect controls or anything kind of like that, all you should have to do is go up to the top menu and click window. And then here you should see all of those options, and you can just simply click one to check mark and enable it, and it should open up for you somewhere, and then you can click and drag around to change the actual layout so that it matches mine or is however you want it to be. So the next step is going to be importing our footage. So you can do this by right clicking down here in the project panel and click import is one way I do it a lot, or you can simply click and drag. So in this case, I've downloaded these three just stock videos of random animals. I think we got some ducks, a seal, and a chameleon, and we're just gonna mess around editing those for this tutorial. So I'm just gonna simply highlight all of these in the file and copy them over. But like I said, you can right click, click import as well. I think you can also go up to file, click import, but any of those methods will work just fine. So now we're getting into creating your sequence or timeline. So at this point in Adobe Premiere, we just have them in our project folder. Now, one thing you can do is double click these and it will put them in this source viewer here, which is separate from your actual editing timeline. So this is a great place to not only preview your footage and see what your footage is. Maybe you have a lot of footage and you're trying to sort through it, which is another thing I will touch on here, is make sure if you have a large project and there's a lot of videos to go through, or maybe you need them in chronological order, try to make sure you organize that beforehand and then keep it organized when you do import it into the project, because it's going to make editing a whole lot easier, especially if it's something that's supposed to be chronological or something like that. Just make sure you stay organized. Now, like I said, this is more beginner to intermediate, and I think people that are editing projects that big where organization is important is more of an advanced thing, but definitely keep that in mind. So not only is this a great place to preview your footage by just double clicking it and it'll show up here, but you can also scrub through it like this to get exact points that you want to cut and drag to your timeline. So that's what we're going to do in this example. So one way you could do it, of course, is just to show you, is you could just drag the seal video straight over and it's going to drag the entire video over, as you can tell. And now the full 10-second video is in our timeline. One more thing I want to touch on when it comes to the sequence or the timeline, which is this section here, and this is going to be what you actually export as your final project. Whatever video you drag into this initially is going to create a new sequence, okay? And the sequence is essentially going to have certain settings. So if I go up to the top left just to show you and click sequence settings, you can see since I dragged the seal footage into the timeline first, since that was the very first thing, it automatically created a sequence on the timeline of those parameters of the video. So for instance, 1920 by 1080 at about 24 frames per second. So that is going to be what our sequence settings are if we were to leave that seal video as our first thing we dragged over, because it's just going to simply use the settings from whatever footage you put over there. So if you have 4K footage like this chameleon is, so let's just go ahead and delete the seal, and not only delete the seal because it still has the old sequence, but it's actually going to put the sequence into your project bin, which is just this black square. You can tell it's the sequence by this icon right here, which if you hover will say sequence. We're going to simply click the delete key on our keyboard to delete that. You also might be able to right click it, but I just use the delete key. But now if you see, we drag the chameleon video over, and this is a step I'm spending a little bit of time on because it's actually very important to make sure you export properly at the end, or else your entire edit's going to be messed up unless you fix it, which isn't a huge deal, but I just want to emphasize this point. Now with the chameleon footage that I have just dragged over, it is actually in 4K. So now our sequence, if we go back to our sequence settings, they're actually completely different. It's now 25 frames per second and it's in 4K resolution, which is the resolution you see right here. So it's going to be different settings depending on which video you drag in first. So my general rule of thumb for me is I just drag in whatever video fits the criteria for the sequence I want to use. So usually in gaming videos, this would be 1080p and 60 FPS. For most videos, you're probably going to want to edit in 1080p 30 FPS, or either of those two. But either way, hopefully your starting video is whatever you want to be editing in. So let's go ahead and drag the ducks over here. But if you do want to change it, again, you can go into sequence settings and you can just simply, change this to whatever you would like. We could simply change it to 60 frames. But for this project, that doesn't make a lot of sense because the footage is only 30 frames, so there's no need to change it. But it's all going to depend on whatever your footage is. So now that we've already dragged the duck footage over, we're just going to simply drag over the other footage. Now, if you notice, there is audio attached to the duck footage here, because everything that says like V1, V2, and V3 going up is going to be our video. Everything A1 down to A3 going down is going to be audio tracks. So you can actually make these wider or smaller by dragging this little bar here, which is useful for things that I'm going to show you here soon. But if you want to actually delete this audio, because for instance, it would normally show you audio waves here, especially if you expand it, it'll actually show you audio waves, which you can use to edit, which I'm going to show you later. But it'll actually show you those waves. But as you can tell, there's no audio going with this video. Same thing with this chameleon video, except this actually didn't have audio attached to it, but neither of them have audio. So that's why they look a little different here. So if you want to make it look a little more uniform and just delete this audio, there's a couple ways you could do this. First of which is by clicking unlink, and then you can actually select each of these separately. You could just click the audio track and click delete and it's gone. Another way you can do it is if I want to drag over this duck video again, you can actually right here in this sort of preview window, you can actually just click this drag video only. You can also do the same thing if you want to only drag the audio from a video. So if you just wanted to drag that audio, but obviously we don't want that, we just want the video. So you can just do that and drag the audio, or the video rather, straight over there. And now you don't have to worry about that extra step in this case. But make sure you don't do that unless you actually do not want the audio. Now we're going to drag over our final seal video, and now we have our 3 videos together, and I've just aligned them together like this. If it's not snapping together like that when you get it close, you can actually just click this magnet icon right here, which does say, snap in timeline, or you could use hotkey S to enable it, but make sure that is blue so that everything kind of snaps together nicely like a magnet. From this point, I just want to do a little voiceover just so that I can actually edit it and give you an example of if I was editing a video with a voiceover, and then we'll get into the cutting and trimming part of the video. All right, so I just recorded a just simple little voiceover talking about the footage we're using in this example. So we're gonna go ahead and listen. I'll let you listen to it, and then we're going to cut it because obviously it's not gonna match up with the footage. So For this step, I would recommend making your timeline larger like this, and actually expanding your audio, so that we can actually work with the audio from this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it here for you. Now, as you can tell, it doesn't line up with the video at all. There's also pauses where I, had a pause in my speech and things like that. And obviously we want to be editing that stuff out so that we have a nice clean edit that matches our video. So simply what we're going to do is actually zoom right in here on our audio. And I like to scrub this and maybe watch it a time or two just to figure out exactly where I need to cut. And we're going to be cutting by using this tool on the left called the razor tool. You can toggle this by clicking C, and it'll actually toggle the razor tool so that you can just left click to cut wherever you want. And these are the two main hotkeys I'm going to recommend you use. Our V to swap between your selection, normal arrow, and your C. So V and C should really be, at least for me, that's the main two hotkeys I ever use. We're going to go ahead and have our razor tool ready, and we're going to give this one watch through. So as we can tell by looking at the audio waves and giving it one listen through, this first audio wave was me like kind of clearing my throat, and then there was like a little noise there. We can tell a little blip on the radar. And then where I really started talking was right before this big audio wave. So you don't have to be super exact when trimming, but you definitely want to, cut out things like the throat clear and things like that. So we're gonna go ahead and just cut this right here. Make sure if your audio and your video are separate, you cut them separate like that. If they're already linked together, like I showed you how to unlink them earlier, it'll cut them at the same time, but just make sure you're cutting both of whatever you want to cut. In this case, we don't even really need to cut the video. So I'm just going to simply cut the audio right there. I'm going to just click this left section and click delete. If you're using other video editing software, cutting might also just be called splitting. It's going to be the same thing. So at this point, there's a couple things you want to do, because if we back up to the beginning of the video by clicking this button here on the left near the play button, and we play it, we cut that section out, so it's actually just going to be no audio for that first however many seconds. So what we need to do is actually drag our audio to the left over here. And if I press Control Z, it's going to undo my last action. So if you see something like happening like I just did there, like that, that's just me simply pressing Control Z to undo my last action. And you can do that multiple times if you do want to, kind of backtrack and you mess something up and you want to redo something. But the other way to do this, which is going to be more useful if you've done multiple cuts. So let's say I've already went ahead and just cut up all of this. Let me just go ahead and do a super rough cut of all of this. So I just went through where there's no talking, no sound, because obviously the audio wave's not there. I'm just going to delete these. Now, what you could do here, since it's all separate, is you could drag each one of them back and forth like this, because there's the magnet on and it'll just snap together. We can also just right click and click ripple delete, but if you notice, it is grayed out, which I'm not entirely sure why it does this, but I found if I lock my video or other sections, it'll let me do it. I think it's trying to keep it connected to the video or something, but it's not. But anyways, if you just lock your other things, it'll actually let you do this. And then if you click ripple delete, it'll simply just automatically connect them like that. So in different scenarios, that can be more useful and practical than dragging them, especially if you have a lot of little cuts or things like that. So then we're just going to unlock our video and we're back to normal. And now our voiceover should sound a little better. Let's give it a listen. Okay, so now as you can tell, I mean, it's pretty perfect little edit there. There's no more pauses. There's no more throat clear. We've got our video, or our audio rather, edited perfectly. Now we just simply need to match our footage up with the audio. So as you can tell, if we scrub, we can tell what our video is. If we forget, you can also drag this larger to actually see your footage. I personally don't do that a lot. I usually just scrub, but you can definitely make that larger if you do want to actually see the video. Maybe I'll leave it like that for the video. So we get our duck footage, which we're going to need first. So what we want to do is actually just back it up here. Then basically editing is going to be a lot of rewatching the video. At least that's how I do it. You just got to, make your edit and then watch the video, see what it looks like, and then make adjustments from there. So that's what we're going to do. So as you can tell, they have scurried away, but they didn't actually scurry away in the video. So what we're going to need to do is actually use this second part of the video where they actually scurry away at this section. So what we're going to do is actually cut off the beginning of the video and probably cut this roughly in half. So there's a couple ways to do this. First, you can press C or go to your razor tool to cut. You can simply click anywhere here if you would like, or you can click and drag like you just saw me do. If you go on the end of the footage, it will give you a little red icon prompt, and you can actually just drag this to literally wherever you want. This is something you can do after you cut too, so you could cut it, delete it, and then still drag it. It's basically just gonna do the same thing as cutting it. So let's go ahead and drag this to a point where we know it's actually too small, and I'm gonna drag it to where it lines up and snaps right with the end of this section, which I believe is where the duck scurried away, which is the end of the video. Then all I want to do is I can simply drag this back to match the beginning of the video, and now we have a simple quick little edit there. And now if we rewatch it, the audio should line up with the video. So there you have it, the ducks have scurried away. That lined up nice. So let's go ahead and see what I said for the next part of the video. So I was just talking about the chameleon, so let's go ahead and drag the chameleon over here. Now this is a part where you could also use this source area, and you could just, you know, like let's say you never even put in the footage of anything else, and you were editing audio first, basically. You could now come in here and grab whatever section of the chameleon or whatever footage you need at this point. So how you would do that is, if you saw the button I clicked here, there's a mark in and a mark out. You can also use hotkey I and O, but I just personally clicked the button because what you can do is actually add a mark in. This will add where the footage will begin, and then you can actually just watch through or scrub through and set a mark out. And then whenever you drag this footage over, it's just going to drag it from that point. Now, even if you do that, it's not going to permanently cut the footage. You can still drag it and cut it like this and trim it like that. But that's just another way to do it, just to give you a few tips and tricks you can do. But we're just going to simply drag it just like we did down there. Now if we give it a watch. So now our video is essentially complete as far as cutting and trimming and things like that. But now I'm going to show you some ways you can adjust the volume, add some audio effects, and we'll get into some basic transitions, text and graphics, and things like that. So there's a million different things you can do when it comes to editing audio in Adobe Premiere or other programs as well. But personally, what I like to do is I will just select all my footage. You can do this by shift clicking each one, or you can click and drag over all of your audio. And then I like to right click and click audio gain. Here, you're going to be able to adjust your gain up by a certain amount of decibels by just, putting in number 6 here under the adjust gain by. But what I like to do personally, I don't know if this is the professional way or whatever, is if I want to make sure my audio is all even and loud enough, if it's like a voiceover like this, I'll just simply click normalize max peak 2 and leave it on 0. Then if I click OK, as you can see, it raised all of the peaks up. So now it's a little bit louder. So now it's all a little bit louder, but it doesn't fully peak over that 0 amount. But if you do want to edit audio separately by clip or whatever, you can just simply adjust the decibels like that. You can also, if you zoom in to edit the audio, you can also grab this little thin line you can see right here and actually just pull it down, and it will actually show you the amount that the audio is getting pulled down, or up if you do want to move it up. So for the next portion of this video, we're going to be using something called Mr. Horse Premiere Composer. I'll leave a link in the description if you do want to check it out. This is going to give us a starter pack of free text boxes and really cool transitions and basically more advanced things that it's going to make it super easy to use. And we're going to use a few of them in this video here next. But if you do want to use the Premiere Composer free starter pack, I'll leave a link in the description. It will be an affiliate link, so if you do purchase any of their other premium or additional effects and graphics, it will help support the channel at no extra cost to you, as I will earn a commission. But they have a completely free starter pack, which is what I use and what we're going to be using today. So to start off, if you don't have Premiere Composer, or you don't really want any fancy graphics, you just simply want to add some text, you can use the text tool down here on the left, or it's called the type tool. You can also use the hotkey T. You can simply click that and just drag it anywhere on your video, and it's going to simply open up a red box. You can type literally whatever you want. I'm just going to type hello in this example. From here, if you want to edit this, just right in Premiere, you can go to your Essential Graphics tab. If you don't have that open, again, you can go to Window, go to Essential Graphics, and make sure you have access to that. But from here, you can click Edit, select whichever text you want to edit. You can, center it each direction, things like that. center a line there. You can adjust the size. Keep in mind you will need to maybe highlight it like this and then adjust the size so it'll actually adjust it for you. You can also change the font to literally whatever you like. We'll change it to Roboto for now. You can also add a stroke, so let's just add a little black stroke to it, then increase it to like 12, which it didn't actually do because we didn't select it. There we go. So then from there you can actually just go back to your selection tool. You can drag this around. If it's cutting it off like that or doing something weird, you're just gonna have to go to your move tool and drag this larger so that it has kind of more room to breathe essentially. Then you can drag it around wherever you want. And in terms of how long it's on the screen or when it appears, you can also just drag this on the timeline just like you would a video. If you want to cut off at a certain point or extend it, you know, however long you want, you can do that right in the timeline. But for now, we're going to delete that text and we're actually going to use the Premiere Composer to make something a little more fancy. So let's go ahead and take a look at their text boxes here. And they have, you know, some different options here. Let's just go ahead and just pick a random one. Let's just pick this third one. We're going to let it import. It's going to take a second and there we have it. You can do the same thing with the Essential Graphics tab to edit their stuff, but also in their Premiere Composer tab, which if you install Premiere Composer, you will have. You can also just expand these and do some editing in here, which is what I recommend starting with. So for this example, let's just have this again, say hello. I'll say hello world, because that's, you know, a thing in the coding world people say when they're learning to code. But anyways, from here, to edit the position on this, we're actually going to just click and drag the transform numbers here on the right-hand panel. I'm just going to drag it around. Honestly, 960 and 960 seems pretty good, so I'm just going to type that in. And also change the scale if you want it a little larger. So we'll change that to 120 scale. You can also change, you know, the font here and things like that. So we'll just change it to whatever this one's called. So let's just say, yeah, that looks good. And we've dragged it how we want it. And now we have a little animated text. So it comes in and out nice and easy. So that's how you can use Adobe Premiere Composer to just add something like a text box. Now, when it comes to adding transitions, this is where I personally really love Premiere Composer because you can create some pretty advanced and very cool, engaging transitions without having to actually do the individual keyframing and more advanced technical stuff. So one of my favorites is actually the pan to the right. Just a nice clean kind of swipe to the right. And I also love that in Premiere Composer, you can actually just look and preview any of the effects you want to use first. Now some of these do come with sound effects, which you can hear in like this one, for example. The zoom in and out are pretty good. But let's go ahead and just use the pan right for now. So all you want to do is click and drag this onto your timeline. And for the pan right, and each one of these is going to be a little bit different. But for the pan right, you just want to drag it just like so to the point where the middle of these two pink kind of videos, it lines up directly in between the two videos you're adding the transition with. One thing I'm going to go ahead and do, because I know it's going to be kind of loud, is the transition audio in these is usually too loud for my liking. So I like to go to audio gain. Make sure you're on adjust gain by, not normalize max peak for this. We're just going to do minus like 24, which is going to make it pretty quiet, but I personally don't really like the really loud transitional audio that they have. I like to quiet it down a little bit or sometimes fully delete it. So now, if we give this a watch from about this point, we can actually see how nice this transition is. Look at that. Perfect, nice wipe transition, or pan to the right transition rather. And it was super easy. And if you do want to duplicate this multiple times, the way I'm going to recommend you do it is by just highlighting this. You don't actually have to highlight all of them together as they currently are, because they're all going to be already linked together. So you can just highlight, you know, one or two of them, and it should automatically light them all up white so that you know they're all selected. From here, you can actually hold Alt and then drag it over to the next cut. If you don't want to do that, you could copy it with Control C and then paste it with Control V, or you could just simply drag another one over from the effects tab just like that. Keep in mind, if you do it that way though, you are gonna have to edit that audio again like I did before. Next, I'm going to show you how to create automatic subtitles or captions, whatever you want to call them. These have become very popular recently, especially in the short form video world. But in general, it's just great to have in a lot of different types of videos, and it can make your video edit a lot more engaging. So in Premiere Pro, you can actually do this pretty easily if you do have a good, clear voiceover track. So what you want to do, in my case, I go to the top left here, click this arrow. You want to click text. From here, you want to go to transcript on the left. And as you can tell, it says no dialogue found. All we need to do is simply kind of click and drag to select our audio here, and then it'll automatically pick it up. And as you can tell, it's already going to have a transcription of it automatically. So you can read it here. You can make any edits here if you want. In this example, I'm not going to be taking the time to go through and edit it. It looks like it's already probably got it 100% accurate because I was speaking pretty clearly and things like that. But if you're using slang, or maybe there's multiple people talking or things like that, this can get a little more complicated. But if you have a simple, clear one person talking voice track, this can be incredibly simple and actually only take a few clicks of a button to do. So that's what we're going to do here is click create captions. Is just going to be the CC button on the top kind of right here. Going to click that, expand this little blue arrow, and the settings I prefer if I'm doing short form video is going to be all the way down on all of these, and then click your lines to single. But for the sake of this video, we're just gonna reselect it and we're gonna leave it on default. But keep in mind, you can just adjust to get the amount of characters you want and how long it's on the screen and things like that from this menu. You can also edit the style if you save a style, but I'm gonna show you how to change the font afterwards though. But we're just gonna leave the maximum length at 42. Yada yada. But I am going to change the lines to single because I just personally don't really like the double lines. I just want the single line because the double line is going to take up more space on the screen and take away from whatever the actual video is. So that's the only thing I'm going to change in this example. And then if you click create captions, give it a couple of seconds. Now if we watch the video, it should have our captions on the bottom middle in just a default font style. So as you can tell, it already looks honestly phenomenal. I think this actually had 100% accuracy because it is pretty accurate as long as you're not speaking, over top of somebody or there's background noise or things like that. It's actually very accurate. But if you do needed to edit this, you can actually just click in here and double click these and actually edit the individual kind of sections of speech. You can also click and drag these to edit the individual words on the timeline. So for instance, if I wanted video that I'm editing together, I could come in here and I could just add the video that to that sort of text block, and then what I would do is come to the timeline, click video that and delete that, and then drag this to where that other one started. So now essentially those two are just together. That can come in handy in a few different situations. We don't really need to do that. Didn't really need to do that right here, but just keep in mind that's one way you can edit words back together, or make changes as you need. Now that we've got all of these other things done, I'm going to show you how you can edit the color on your video. So you just want to click whatever video you want to add color to, and to make sure it's selected. Or you can do what I'm going to show you is a more intermediate, advanced way, but also pretty simple and useful. So we're going to go over to the project, go to new item, create an adjustment layer. Just click OK. It doesn't matter too much the details of that. And what we're going to do is actually drag this above everything we want our color to apply to. So in this example, I don't want to apply it to the text or anything. So I actually want to drag it above that. But if you notice, we're out of video tracks. So that's an easy fix, is you just go up to edit or sequence, actually go up to sequence, come down to add tracks, and then you can just simply click OK on this. And now it's going to give us an extra audio and video track. So now what I'm going to do is just simply drag my adjustment or my text above right here. As you can tell, I need another audio track. Otherwise, if I drag this adjustment layer over, I'm going to be running into my transition. So I don't want to do that. So let's just go back to sequence, add another track. And again, there might be a better way to do this, is just how I do it. So stay with me here. I'm going to drag this back up, drag my adjustment layer there. And now I can drag this adjustment layer all the way over to the end of the video, just like that. And now this adjustment layer is essentially what we're going to be changing the color of, but it's going to apply it to every video down below. But if you do want to make it a little more simple and just edit the color of each individual video itself, because maybe, you know, one video needs the color edited and the other doesn't, or something like that, you don't have to use the adjustment layer. You can simply select the videos individually. But for this example, I'm going to click the adjustment layer, and then all you want to do is go over to the top right Lumetri color, open up that tab, and then here you're going to have your two most useful tabs for beginners is going to be basic correction and then creative. So we're going to go ahead and open up basic correction here and just drag to a portion of our video so we can actually just see it on screen. I'll make it a little bigger here. And from here, you can edit literally anything you want. So for example, let's just make the contrast a little brighter, a little more vibrant. We'll just bring it up to like 115. You can also click these values and edit them manually if you would like. Temperature, you can make it a little cooler, you can make it a little warmer. So just make it a little warmer at about 5. Let's say that's good. So now, as you can tell, it's actually going to apply that to all of these, even the chameleon, since we did use the adjustment layer. And if we toggle this on and off, you may be able to see the slight difference as well. And using the adjustment layer is also good, because if you need to make any changes to anything specific later, it's not going to be, you know, taking up the entire video. You can actually edit different colors for different sections of videos and things like that. But anyways, you're going to be able to edit so many color options here. It would take all day to go over these. You can make it sharper, you can make it more vibrant, you can add different effects, you can do a million different things with this, but this is how you edit color of your video. So once you've done all your editing and you've proof watched your video a time or two and made sure there were no mistakes, we're ready to export. So in order to do this, we're going to go up to the first we're going to make sure our sequence is selected. You're going to know it's selected by having the blue line around it. So then we're going to click file or hover over file, click it, whatever. And we're actually going to go down to export and then over to media. From here, you're going to have some good presets that I'm going to just recommend for most of you. High quality 1080p is probably going to be popular, or YouTube 1080p full HD. So we're just going to click that, and you can simply export in that and leave everything else as is, and it'll be perfectly fine as long as you're exporting for YouTube or something, you know, similar. It's going to be just fine. But if you do want to edit things more specific, then you can simply open up these tabs here and then get in here and just, you know, make sure your resolution is whatever you want it to be, your frame rate. You can actually just edit all of these to be whatever you would like individually. But for the most part, I would say just use the presets built in for whatever resolution you would like, whether it's on YouTube or you just use a simple high quality one. They're going to give you pretty good quality 9 times out of 10. And that's pretty much it. Once you click export, it's going to save it to wherever you have saved the location here under whatever file name you set here. And that's really it. So hopefully this video made sense and helped you guys out, gave you some tips and tricks on how to use Adobe Premiere Pro and video editing in general. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.